Hi everyone, thank you for coming to this ATAGO meetup. Last week we talked about our PAL soil for measuring the volumetric and gravimetric soil moisture. Today's meetup we'll be discussing another one of our units. I know in the past I have mostly talked about our PAL units, so I wanted to switch things up and talk about one of our more stationary units. This is our Repo-4. This will measure the total analysis of honey, and it is ideal for the honey processing and testing industries. Also can be used in a lab, or processing can be moved around the lab to different locations. It is still pretty portable, though it does have that more stationary feel to it. If you are just a beekeeper and are wanting to know honey moisture as well as angle rotation of honey, this is a great unit to have and a great tool to help assist in knowing what is in your honey. This is a unit that could also be used as a tool to assist for honey judges in honey competitions or honey graders. Alright, and now I'm just going to go over the unit itself. Alright, so this is the Repo-4, and as I mentioned, it will measure the total analysis of honey. It can measure the angle of rotation, brix, or sugar content, fructose percent of honey, as well as honey moisture and honey temperature. So what this will come with is it'll come with the main unit. So it'll also come with the instruction manual, 4 AAA batteries, as well as a disposable plastic pipette, and that is what you can use to put the honey in there. So components and functions of this unit. So this is your start button right here. This is what you're going to press to turn the unit on. The power button is located, right here. This is what you're going to use to turn the instrument on. The start button is what you're going to use to take the measurements. This is the LCD screen. It will display the measurement values as well as temperature and scale, as well as battery indicator. So everything that you're going to need to know will be displayed right here on the LCD screen. It also has a zero set button right here, what you're going to use to zero set your instrument. It also has the different scale buttons. So you have your angle of rotation button right here, your brix or sugar value right here, and your user right here, which you can press to change between fructose and honey moisture. So if you can see, angle of rotation, brix, and the user, like I said, will be your angle or your honey moisture and fructose measurements. All right, perfect. So on the back too, this is where you're going to have your batteries right here. You can remove batteries by just, twisting that and replacing. Turn it back over. I'm just gonna turn it on. So you press the power button, and that will turn it on. So as you can see, you're gonna have your battery life right here, fully charged. Alright. So before using this unit, just like all of our other units I have discussed, you're gonna want to zero set. How you do that is you're gonna turn the power button on, and you are going to zero set before the beginning of each use or the beginning of each day before you use the instrument. Another note, for regular zero setting throughout the day is also recommended to ensure accurate results, so you can double check to make sure that your unit is still functioning properly between measurements. That's also something that you can do. It takes 5 seconds, very quick. So we're just going to start by zero setting. So like I said, turn the power on, make sure your unit is on, has a good enough battery to take your measurements, and optical rotations and brix can be zero set in any scale. However, when the optical rotation scale is selected, even when brix zero set, a no error message will display. So let's just putting your water. So you're going to 0 set this instrument with tap water, and you're going to fill it to the line. As you can see here, there's a line right there. And once you've filled up to that line, make sure you're getting enough of the sample in there. You're going to press 0. And also important to note, if you can see right here, it is currently on the user, so we can change to brix or AR, angle of rotation, and that's just how you're going to change which measurement you're trying to take. So to 0 set, we'll start with angle of rotation and press 0. And as it's blinking, that just means it's doing the measurement. And once it stops blinking, that means it is stable. And we have 0 set for angle of rotation. Great. If we want to move on to brix, we can press it again. So it's now set to brix. We can 0 set. Alright, just like that, 0 set for brix. So the 000 will flash and stop, and that's how you know that you're done taking the measurement or the 0 setting measurement. We recommend to use room temperature water when doing this. The instrument should also be acclimated to room temperature prior to operations. If your water is too hot or too cold, that could kind of fluctuate the readings and skew the 0 settings. We do recommend using room temperature tap water when 0 setting for this instrument. Alright, so I'm just going to mention briefly kind of what the different scales mean. They each have a different meaning. So for angle of rotation, there's going to be a minus sign, and that is denoted by alpha and is used or expressed in degrees. So angle of rotation is the rotation of polarized light. When it is observed, the polarized light will oscillate unidirectionally and rotate as it passes through the liquid. So right here, the measurement of the angle of rotation is called angle of rotation, and the angle of rotation is the basic numeric value measured by polarimeters and are dependent on the concentration of the liquid. So the length of the observation tube, which is located inside the unit, temperature, and the measurement wavelength. And the observation tube for this instrument is about 20 milliliters long, so it's actually in the instrument. So for fructose, which is going to be found in the user setting, that is just the fructose percent of honey, and fructose percent is calculated by taking the fructose concentration divided by fructose, glucose, and any other sugars, and then you multiply that by 800, and that will give you the fructose percent. So honey moisture percent is just the moisture or water content or percent in the honey. Right. Okay, so to take a measurement, a couple things. So I will be using honey. This is just a regular honey, and I would recommend for this instrument, honey can have typically a lot of air bubbles in it, and for this instrument I found it's very helpful to take a plastic spoon instead of squeezing the honey out. A lot of air bubbles can affect the readings of your instrument, so we do recommend trying to avoid any air bubbles if possible. So we're going to start by going back up, change it back to angle of rotation to start, just like that. And like I mentioned, you just change the scales by pressing the button. And the user scale, like I mentioned, it's fructose percent of honey and honey moisture, depending on which one you press. And that's how you change the scale. So super easy to change between the scales. So now that we've wiped the sample stage clean of our water, you can take the pipette with the honey, or you can take the spoon. And so I found that using a spoon is a little easier just because you are eliminating a large amount of air bubbles doing it this way. So you're just going to fill it up to that line again. So I think that is about 1.5 scoops. You could probably use less, but for this purpose I'm just going to do that and trying to get as little air bubbles as possible. If you are seeing a lot of air bubbles in your honey, you can also warm your honey up a little bit prior to putting it in here. That'll kind of help eliminate some of the air bubbles that you see. That is just something that when I first used this instrument I was having a little difficulty with, was just there was a ton of air bubbles, really small air bubbles, and it was not measuring a couple. It was not measuring the angle of rotation correctly, but then I solved the issue by cleaning everything out and then using a spoon to put the honey into the unit. So if you're having an off reading, try doing that. Try warming your honey before putting it in. Those are just 2 easy, quick resolutions that you can try. Okay, so now that we have our honey in there filled up to the line, we're just going to press the start button. Okay. Like I mentioned, after you press the start button, it'll keep flashing, and you'll see that there's a light in here that's flashing as well, and that is when it's doing the reading. And you also notice a green light right here. That just means that your sample is within the range of the unit. So once it's green, you get your reading, you can take your reading measurement. So after it stops flashing, that is your reading. It's important to note that if you press a couple times, it is still acclimating to the temperature of the unit also, so this honey is probably a little bit cold. We can keep pressing until we get that stable reading. So it's at 172. Oops. Press start again. We can keep doing that until we see that stable reading. And it can take a couple times just to get it super stable, just until the sample acclimates. Time. Okay, it's getting closer. Let me see. Press it again. I think the first one was 1.72, 1.69, 1.71. 1.72. Okay, one more time. .73. So it is pretty consistent. It's not going up or down too much. So it's in that 1.71, 1.73 range. Okay, so 1.73. Okay, so now we're going to switch the scales, and you simply do that by pressing whatever scale you want to use. We're going to press brix next, and it'll automatically transition to measure the brix. So we can press start. .8. Okay, we can press start one more time. All right, 81.8. So we are getting a stable reading at 81.8 for brix. Okay, so now we can do the fructose as well as the honey moisture. So I'm just going to pick that up so you can see. So we're just going to press user, and this is fructose. If you saw, it happened pretty quick, but this is fructose. That's 55.5%, and you can press start. Fructose. If you saw that little FRU, that means this is fructose. So we can press start one more time. You can see the little light taking the measurement. One more time. Okay, so it's also important to note that movement can cause the light to kind of bounce off weird. So if your unit is moving, just try to keep it stationary. So picking it up probably wasn't the best, but we're going to press one more time and not touch the unit this time. Okay. So it's within that same kind of range. We'll press one more time just to be safe, and then we'll move on to moisture of honey. So this unit is capable of taking a bunch of different measurements. It is really the total analysis of honey. So now that we've stopped picking up the unit, it is reading stable now. So we're gonna go on and hit the user, and it'll change to honey. It'll say HON, which is honey moisture. So honey moisture for this is 16.5. We can go ahead and press start again. So a really great tool to have. This is a tool that can be brought to honey competitions. It is a great tool to have for the judges. They're able to measure not only honey moisture, but also, you know, the fructose in honey, angle of rotation, you know, sugar content. So it really measures everything when it comes to honey. It's a great unit to have. So it's something we highly recommend. Even if you're just a small beekeeper or have a small farm or hive, it is just a great tool to have to know what's in your honey, how your bees are doing. Just a great tool to utilize for those reasons. All right, we'll press start one more time. I'm just gonna go over also a couple of error messages that you could see. So for this unit, HHH, if it's displayed here, will mean that the sample measured is above the measurement range. LLL is the sample measured below the measurement range. So when I mentioned before I was having some issues with the angle of rotation, it was because I had too many air bubbles, and it was measuring HHH, which is outside the range. I corrected that by taking a different sample and eliminating most of the air bubbles, and then it was reading perfect. So that is just something that I noticed when using this instrument for the first time. If you see a 0D, it means that there was not enough light passing through the sample solution to take the angle of rotation measurement. So when I was using this instrument for the first time for the sucrose percent, it was showing 0D because there were too many air bubbles, so the light could not pass through the sample. So a solution for that could be to either get a new sample, or you can dilute or filter the sample before measuring. So a lot of honey, comes from beehives, and hives contain wax or other particles of, pollen or honeycomb, which is a solid. If you are having issues with reading those measurements, you can filter out your honey so you're just getting the honey part. So you want to eliminate any wax, any of the pollen particles, or any of the comb that a lot of honeys, you can see having issues with that. If it has solids, the light cannot pass through. So NNN just will mean there is too much external light interfering with the measurements. To correct that, you're simply just going to cover your hand and shade the sample stage, and then measure again and see if that works. That error message may also appear if the sample temperature is too low. So if it is too cold or too hot, you could also get an NNN reading. Alright, so AAA is when you press the 0 to zero set your instrument, and it was pressed with nothing or something other than water on the sample stage. So we can try and see if we can zero set with that. Okay. So we're getting the AAA reading, meaning I tried to zero set with honey on the sample stage. So as you can see, that won't work. These instruments are very precise, and when you zero set, you need to use water. If you are trying to zero set with air, you will get the same message as well. So that is just something important to note. Its instruments are very specific and need to be zero set properly. But you will get accurate readings if you zero set before initial use each time. So to clean this instrument, you want to ensure that the sample stage is clean before each measurement. You want to get all the residual residue or anything else out of the center. And you want to clean the sample stage immediately after each measurement and thoroughly dry the instrument before storing. You want to make sure that you keep it clean, keep it dry when storing. Please do not use benzene or paint thinner on this instrument. This instrument is for honey only. Please also store it away from direct sunlight and at a good, solid, stable temperature with little fluctuation as possible. Just a couple things to note for this instrument as well. So for oily samples, you want to also clean the oily residue with ethyl alcohol or mild soap. We encourage mild soap, and then rinse with water as well. And it can be washed under running water, but please thoroughly dry the instrument before storing. You don't want any moisture to accumulate in the grooves of the buttons. It will not affect the instrument, but just something important to note when using the instrument. Just like all our other instruments, you want to keep them, working properly and working correctly for your applications. And to do that, you should be taking proper care of the instrument. I also just want to briefly mention that we also have a PAL unit. It's called our PAL 22S. It is a digital handheld unit just like our other PAL units, but that unit only measures honey moisture, whereas this one can do brix, honey moisture, fructose, as well as angle of rotation. So this unit really can do it all, but if you are just looking for honey moisture, we do have a PAL 22S unit for that as well. So just something I wanted to mention briefly for that. Okay, and then I will just clean out the honey. So also just something important to note too, if you are seeing just a couple air bubbles, like I'm seeing one right there, though our instrument read properly, you can use a Q-tip and just gently push to try to eliminate some of those air bubbles as well. But just something important to know, that you can use a Q-tip to kind of move the air bubble off to the side, or do whatever you need to do to get that reading. It will work well for that. All right. And then to replace the batteries, like I mentioned, you're just going to unscrew the back of the instrument. I can clean this off and show you. I am doing this the messy way, but you can just rinse the unit under the water as well. Just make sure you dry it well. I don't have a sink near me, so I'm just gonna scoop. All right. Scoop all the honey. And rinse. Alright, so like I mentioned, this unit is more stationary, so it's a good thing to have in the testing labs or testing facilities. And if you have a sink in your testing facility, I would recommend using the sink to clean it up. It'll reduce time that way. I mean, this cleanup was pretty easy for this, but it will take even less time if you can do it under running water. Right. Make sure we got everything. Alright, just like that. So cleanup is pretty easy for that as well. So for batteries to replace, you have this right here, and you can take a coin. We probably recommend a coin. A penny would work fine, and you simply just unscrew, and then you open it up, and then you replace the batteries that way. So just a very easy way to replace the batteries for this. And to turn off the unit, also the unit will turn off if there's inactivity for a certain amount of time. It will shut off, and that is to save battery life for this unit. ATAGO has kept users in mind. We try to save money, time, try to kind of have our units appeal to the customer. So another function is to have them turn off when there is inactivity, and that if you forget to turn your unit off, it will do it for you. So that is saving money for batteries. But you can also hold down the power, and that'll turn it off as well. So that is our Repo-4. If you have any questions about our Repo-4, feel free to reach out via phone or email. We'd be more than happy to send you guys a demo unit. Alright, so Repo-4, we also have a PAL 22S, which is the handheld version, but that one is only honey moisture. This one has brix, angle of rotation, fructose, as well as moisture. So this is an all-in-one unit. Like I said, if you have any questions or want to try out a demo for yourself, please feel free to contact us. Also, please follow us on Instagram and Facebook, and if you missed any of our prior meetups, we would love to send you the link, or you can follow us on YouTube. Alright guys, have a good day. Thank you.